Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Philly on PHLY. Philly with Jon Marks on PHLY. As always, brought to you by BetParks. As I was just looking on the BetParks app to see if the odds have improved in the Phillies' favor as we have the first day of Major League Baseball playoffs yesterday. More on that coming up here in a little bit. Lot to talk about. Very full and fun show. Real fast, and I'll put my keyboard down for this. So the shirt that I'm wearing right now is not the shirt that I had on at 5:15 this morning. So here's my typical routine. I've been doing this long enough now where you have the routine down, up at either 4 or 4:15, depending on what I have to do downstairs with lunches and the kids or whatever. I do the lunches before I leave. So I was up 4:15. Lunches were being made. My 3-year-old Bella is crying daddy. So this is 4:45. Daddy. So it's like, all right. Sometimes she wakes up during the middle of the night. I go up, go get her, rock her, get her back to sleep. 4:58 a.m., I put her back down in her bed, go back down, wrapping up lunches, getting my coffee ready and everything else. 5:15 with my backpack up. Before that, she's crying again. I take her in and I put her and my wife in bed because I'm like, I got to go. So put my backpack on. I'm downstairs. I'm grabbing everything. And I hear like this thud. And it's like, oh, no, what was that? I thought maybe she fell out of bed, but there wasn't a cry that was after the thud. So I'm like, what was that? And then I hear my wife yell my name. So I go running upstairs. Bella's throwing up in the bed. So this is at 5:15 a.m. Bella is throwing up in the bed. My wife does not handle throw up very well. So she's gagging as I go running to grab her. Now, a 3-year-old doesn't really know the routine of when you're going to get sick or what you do when you get sick or really know what to do. So she's just like throwing up on herself and all over our bed. So I grab her, get her into the bathroom before throwing up anymore, get her in front of the toilet, flush the toilet to make sure the toilet, boom, and then she's all right. I managed to not get any throw up on me, but there's throw up all over the bed. Got to get the sheets off. And Tyler, you'll appreciate this. I go downstairs into our mud room, I guess you call it, where you have the sink before you put it in the washer and the dryer. So now I'm spraying the chunky vomit off because you can't put it in the washer with the vomit. You have to get the vomit off first. So I'm spraying down the sheets and the pillowcases and everything else to get the vomit off. And then get that, boom, go back upstairs. My wife has taken the remaining clothes and everything and put my shirt in with the remaining puke stuff, even though it didn't get puke on it because she didn't know. And so now I have to, so then I had to change. So this is how I'm wearing this Flag and Anthem shirt today. This was not what I was wearing at 5:15 this morning as I had my backpack on and my coffee ready to go. So good morning to you. Good morning to everybody out there.
Yeah, real good start to the morning for you, huh? Good times had by all, I assume.
Called the pediatrician.
Is your daughter okay? That's the biggest concern. Is she okay?
She's dry heaving and still throwing up.
So no, the answer to that question is no.
Yeah, so at 7:45 is when the pediatrician, it goes from being the answering service to they will start answering the phone.
Okay.
Set the alarm for 7:45. Boom, called. I just need some Zofran. I need stomach tranquilizer. I can't have her dry heaving all day. It's not going to work. So I got a 10:15 appointment, so I got to fly out of here, get home, grab her, take her to the doctor.
Well, that's at a point, too. Like, you got nothing left in your stomach. It hurts, right? And it doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel good as an adult, and you kind of understand what's happening.
Yeah.
As a kid, you got no idea. Like you said, you don't quite understand why this is happening. You're just in pain. I feel terrible for her.
You just throw up on your lap.
Yeah, that really stinks. I mean,
I think 4 years old is when you know that you're going to throw up. And you make arrangements, either a trash can or you get into the bathroom.
Did you make arrangements?
Well, yeah, like my Lena, my middle girl, if she doesn't feel well, she knows enough. She's like, bring a trash can in here. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, you can get up and go into the bathroom. No, because she's thrown up in the bed before. But anyway, good morning. And like that's actually a perfect segue because that's how I feel after watching the Eagles so far this season. 2-2. Man, it sometimes timing is everything when it comes to being a player, the media, fans, or whatever. And a loss like that in Tampa Bay going into the bye week's not a good thing because now we're going to complain about it and we're going to probably overdo it a little bit before they play their next game. And if the Eagles win their next game and they do it in convincing fashion, everybody's going to be like, oh, we're going back to the Super Bowl. But for right now, we're gonna drown in our own misery and sorrow. And I'm going to help you do it today. All right. Is Jalen Hurts the problem? I'm going to turn to Jalen Hurts today because I feel like a lot of this so far this season has been thrown on the back of Nick Sirianni, which, it's totally fine. He's the head coach of the football team. When you lose games, normally it's going to go on the head coach or it's going to go on the quarterback. And Sirianni has taken the majority of the bullets so far this year. But you can tell that this week that's turned. Eagles are a flawed team. I don't think anybody would dispute that. Their defense isn't great. Their coaching is abysmal. I don't know what the hell they were doing on defense. I don't know what the hell Vic Fangio was doing on defense. Why isn't Nick Sirianni during the game saying, hey, Vic, maybe you should bring your quarters up. Do you see what they're doing? How there weren't changes made during the game, I don't know. Injuries of Davante Smith and A.J. Brown, Lane Johnson was out. I'm not going to blame that, but that's been at least part of it. But the whole reason you pay a quarterback like the Eagles paid Jalen Hurts is to make up for those problems, is to be a difference maker. When, I don't want to compare him to Tom Brady, but when Bill Belichick had bad draft picks and made bad personnel decisions, Tom Brady was still winning because Tom Brady was that good. Great quarterbacks make up for bad coaching, bad personnel decisions by your GM, injuries and things like that. And Jalen Hurts hasn't done that this year. Jalen Hurts hasn't been good this year. A lot of times I feel like we baby Jalen Hurts because wasn't that long ago that we wondered and worried, and I was one of these guys that could Jalen Hurts be a difference maker at the quarterback position with throwing the football? And then 2022 happened, and he proved a lot of people wrong, at least in 2022. But since then, and really since the 12th game of last season, he's been a real problem. Turning the ball over. I'm reading from here. I grabbed this from Ruben Frank on NBC Sports Philadelphia. He shares the NFL turnover lead with Will Levis, one more than Anthony Richardson. He's thrown 22 interceptions in his last 23 starts. And remember, when Jalen started his career, the one thing you could count on was he wasn't going to make mistakes. He wasn't careless with the football. He wasn't fumbling the ball. He wasn't holding the ball too long. He only had 12 turnovers in his previous 25 games, so less than half a turnover per game. Now he's he's thrown 22 interceptions in his last 23 starts. So you combine that with fumbles, he's way over one a game. So, turnovers can be fluky. And the big Jalen Hurts defenders will email me or DM me and say, that interception wasn't on him. Davante, with his route, didn't bring his route enough in. Or, you're right. A lot of times you need a trained football eye to see what happened. If a receiver's running the wrong route, if he's not running a good route, if a guy falls down, A.J. Brown slipped on that one interception. I understand turnovers are fluky, but they're fluky for everybody. Other quarterbacks, it's the same way when you look at their turnover count. The reality is that Jalen has had many more turnover-worthy plays than he should. His decision-making's poor. He is not protecting the ball. His pocket presence is total garbage. And it's pretty much everything across the board. His play is poor. And if you take out Jalen Hurts' legs, the quarterback plays even worse. Because in some of those games, the Atlanta game, the majority of positive yards that were gained on the 2 touchdown drives were from Jalen Hurts running the ball. So Jalen Hurts' play this year has not been good. Jason Avant, who I've long been a fan of when he was an Eagles player, but then when he's done some media, and he hasn't done a ton of media, but when he's done it, and he's doing more recently in the last year or two, when he's done it, I think he's very good. He's not afraid to speak his mind. He's not afraid to give fair analysis. Jason joined Anthony yesterday, and here's what he had to say about Jalen Hurts.
Here's the thing. You can have guys out. You have, your AJ, your Davante, your Lane out. Andy Dalton wins a game with lesser talent. I've seen Joe Flacco go and take a team to a victory the other day. I've seen Brock Purdy didn't get a win, but still threw for 300 yards and have Juwan Jennings go for 200 yards. When will Jalen Hurts be the difference maker? Paid him a lot of money. And now it's time for him to elevate people, and we have yet to see him do that. We've seen a turnover machine. That's what we've seen. And that's just the truth. And everyone's been biting their tongue and holding back. When you hear Tom Brady talk about, he's not going to go back and study 12, 20 games. So when you hear Tom Brady talk about 12, 20 games prior, he is privy to information that we don't know about. Because of his relationship with the Buccaneers, he can go in and talk to Todd Bowles and say, Todd, what do you think about Jalen Hurts? So when he says that Jalen Hurts can be confused with the blitz and he doesn't know what he's looking at, I think that he's hearing that right from Todd Bowles and right from the Bucs organization.
And that's coming from a wide receiver who is seeing things from an offensive standpoint. That's coming from a wide receiver that is watching and saying, what's Jalen doing right now? It's 4 games. We've seen Jalen last year really, really struggle against the blitz. This is not breaking news. He also has done very well against the blitz this season so far, at least through 3 games. The numbers would bear that out. So what's going to happen? Well, they're going to blitz him differently. Defensive coordinators aren't going to stop blitzing Jalen Hurts until he can consistently make them pay. And he did not do that on Sunday. When wide receivers are out, when A.J. Brown, Davante Smith, obviously you're throwing to Paris Campbell and Johnny Wilson and Todd Pinkson and whoever else is out there, right? I don't care. If it was that game where it's like, man, the offense struggled, they really missed those guys. This has been the offense the whole year. It really has. Let's play Dan Orlovsky from ESPN yesterday. He's a guy, again, he's looking at things, and he actually goes back and looks at the film. He's looking at it also from a quarterback standpoint, right? Here's Dan Orlovsky yesterday.
They go in a game on the road without A.J. Brown and Davante Smith. They throw the football 7 of the first 9 plays. You wonder why you're down 21-0. First of all, the first snap of the game, this is called Hank. Hawk knows this concept. Yep. It's a sit in the middle of the field and then hook flats, okay? You always start over the middle of the field. Always. And then work towards the squeeze. Why is Jalen Hurts working towards the left and then setting to the tight end instead of finding that curl? Look at his eyes. He's trying to hold the defender, then getting to the tight end. He's doing it reverse. So it's either he's doing it on his own or he's coached the improper way to operate a play that he has learned for 15 years of his NFL career. That's the first snap of the NFL game. Okay, the next drive, first down, drop, Dallas Goedert. I can't put that on anything other than misexecution. But let's go to the very next play. That's Vita Vea, Marcus. Would you turn to Vita Vea and double team him? Philadelphia does for some stupid reason. And then Vita Vea beats the right guard. That's coaching. That's not giving yourself a plan. Watch how slow this motion takes. Look at the defense having 5 seconds to communicate. Why are we even motioning? You're motioning to make sure that they can get better leverage inside out on a spot.
Yeah, so Dan Orlovsky, and that's why I bring it in now, is also pointing the coaching, which this isn't just about Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, great quarterbacks make up for bad coaching. Jalen Hurts isn't playing well enough to do that right now. Bad coaching. And like the Dallas Goedert drop, like that could totally change a drive. He gets a first down there, that changed the drive. Hard to blame coaching on that. It was a great throw. He was open. There's a lot of things going on. Poor execution, drop. Jalen going through progressions, not seeing guys, holding the ball too long. He holds the ball too long. And we watch the games. Everybody watches the games. I see the same thing that you do. Offense is really struggling right now. It's a matter of whether they can pull themselves out of it, because this isn't just a small sample size. This is going on 6 games last year, and by the way, they weren't perfect before that. And we have 4 games so far this year where you can honestly say that's 10 games of a sample size of this offense is not good. It's not good. So it's a matter of whether or not you think that they can recover from that. One more thing here, and then we'll get to the update. A lot of fans wondering what Jalen Hurts is. I remember last week it was, has he peaked? Dan Orlovsky, same thing. Has he peaked? We talked about that. there were a lot of people didn't think he was good enough, and I was one of those people. Yeah, like he can be a starting quarterback. He can make some money, but I don't think he's a difference-making quarterback. Then he had 2022 where he was a difference-making quarterback, but he's come back down. So Chris Carlin, my buddy Chris Carlin, who works for ESPN Radio now, he had posted, or they did a segment of, is Jalen Hurts a one-hit wonder? And I was like, wow, are we really looking at Jalen Hurts as a one-hit wonder? So I put this social media poll up. I said, is Jalen Hurts closer to a one-hit wonder or a perennial top quarterback? So Tyler Zulli, I will ask you, is Jalen Hurts closer to a one-hit wonder or a perennial top quarterback? So I'll say this. Lamar Jackson clearly is a perennial top quarterback. And I had said on Friday that I would take Jalen Hurts over Lamar Jackson if we were doing the would you game, because I feel like that Lamar lacks that clutch gene and he struggles in the playoffs, and Jalen has already showed it in the playoffs. But Lamar Jackson's a perennial top quarterback. Jalen Hurts has not done that so far. So how would you answer? It's not an easy answer.
Yeah, I mean, is there option 3 for somewhere in between?
We don't allow for options.
Because if there's not, then it's probably closer to the one-hit wonder phase. I don't think it's either currently.
It leans towards one-hit wonder.
Probably right now. I mean, the play has been poor. There's no doubt about it. The pocket presence you brought up. We talked about the one play in particular against the Bucs this past weekend. Davante David, he slips Davante David. Mailata pushes him towards the outside of the pocket. He slips him. He steps up in the pocket. Yes. That was a really nice, awareness play from him. The problem was the awareness went out the window
when he held it.
As soon as David slipped out of the play, you can't just sit here and think, well, he's done, he's cooked, because Davante David is a multi-time All-Pro. The guy is a really, really, really good player. And even if his best years might be behind him as a linebacker, he's still a smart, savvy, still good player. He got right back into the play and then ended up.
Jalen just stood there in the pocket. You have to leave the pocket or get rid of the ball at that point.
Correct. So I think the decision-making has been poor. I think that the escapability, and you brought up the escapability against Atlanta. You can't discredit that. It was part of his game. It's part of the reason as to why they had an opportunity to win that game, probably should have won that game. However, his throws have been poor. I think his decision-making's been poor. Holding on to the football too long. I don't know if this is a route tree distrust. I don't know if it's a receiver distrust, or I don't know if he's so into not trying to not throw an interception that he's holding on to the football too long. I'm not going to sit here and defend the guy. His play's been poor through the first 4 weeks.
Yep. All right. Well, I don't want to finish this conversation right now, but I want to tell you about Glad Hair Restoration, because, man, I'm going to keep saying this. I keep it simple. I'm not the smartest guy in the world to be the first person to admit that. I had hair restoration with Dr. Glad. Right there. Just take a look. We can't zoom in on it, but you can see the results are amazing. And I wasn't completely bald, right? It's not the commercial where the guys, I don't get out of the pool and then like my hair's all wet. I'm like, look how great I look. And then they show the picture of me being bald. No. But if I did jump out of the pool, you'd be like, wow, your hair looks great. But when you're talking about hair restoration and you've heard me talk about it and you're thinking about it, why would you even consider going anywhere else? Glatt Hair Restoration, established by the late Dr. Paul Glatt, now part of the Morgenstern Center, under the direction of renowned plastic surgeon Dr. Ken Morgenstern. Each member of the hair team, and I've known them, I've had a relationship that over 10 years, over a decade. They have over 30 years of industry experience each. Everybody on that hair team, hair restoration is all they do. So they've been through everything. They've been with the science. They know everything that works, right? The experts in the industry, most experience and most success in hair restoration, that's Glatt Hair Restoration. And listen, like, you could be in a different stage of hair loss. I went hair restoration. I was ready. But if you're starting to thin and go bald and you're noticing it, there are a lot of other options that are out there. Non-invasive TED treatments. TED is similar to stem cell and PRP, except it's non-invasive. Very effective. Topical oral medications, vitamin supplements. And then we talked about hair restoration. Regardless, there's an option for you. Get a hold of Glad Hair today. 610-980-4000. 610-980-4000. You can ask questions over the phone, or you can schedule a one-on-one consultation for free. 610-980-4000 or glatzhairmctr.com. Glatzhairmctr.com. Let's talk about Bet Parks for a second. Yep. I'm getting a little bit nervous watching the game yesterday, seeing those stinking Mets rally, come from behind, smashing the ball all over the place. Mets are now plus 800 to win the National League. Those odds have jumped just after yesterday, which you would expect. Phillies plus 300 to win the National League. The Dodgers plus 200. So the Phillies are right there. But this is what I'm talking about with the BetParks app, the one and only sportsbook app that I would ever recommend. BetParks and online casino. A great offer for new customers. 50-1 odds boost on your pick to win this year's Pro Football Championship. So they're calling it a super odds boost. You have 4 games. You can still get in. You don't feel great about the Birds now? Don't bet them. If you see another team, bet them. 50-1 odds boost. And you can double down on 4th down while you watch and wager when there's a break in the action. Regardless, whenever, you can play blackjack, roulette, or craps with a live dealer right on the BetParks app. So get the BetParks app. If you use one of the other services or one of the other apps, get with BetParks right now. Again, the code or the 50-1 odds boost is available right now in the BetParks app. You must be 21 and in PA, New Jersey, Michigan, or Maryland. You play for fun. You love to win. You bet BetParks. Limited time offer for new customers only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. There we go. 5 minutes. Tyler's coming up with our headlines, and he's going to fill us in on everything that happened in Major League Baseball yesterday, which was it was a tremendous day of baseball, man. Really, I love the wild card round, man. That first day where you have all the games, the Tigers game was right down to the last out of the 9th inning. It was great.
I texted a buddy yesterday and I said, this is like the NCAA tournament for baseball fans, because you had a game on, you watched the first game. As soon as it was over, you flipped to the Royals-Orioles. That game was flying. We'll talk more about it, but you were just changing channels all night. You were just watching baseball. It was a lot of fun.
Good day of baseball. Tyler updates us on everything coming up and the Phillies situation. But more just on Jalen before we turn the page. So I don't know how scientific my poll would be putting it out there, but I asked the question of closer to a one-hit wonder or a perennial top quarterback. And I know we're coming off a loss where everybody's mad, but still 75% of people that responded said Jalen's closer to a one-hit wonder than a perennial top quarterback.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you, and I know why you did it. I really hate the question. Because
you don't like the answer.
The middle ground has to be available, right? Exactly. So I don't like either answer. I don't think he's a perennial top quarterback, and he's not playing like one right now. But I also don't know. I don't think he just definitively outright stinks. But
not at all.
If you're making me pick one, the arrow, the meter is pointing. It's pointing closer to one hit wonder right now than it is to the perennial type quarterback.
It is. Trevor I had some good responses to it. Trevor said he's the biggest tease, which I thought was really interesting because he has moments where you're like, wow. It had many moments like that this year throwing the ball, but when he had the burst and he split the defenders in the Atlanta game, it's your reaction is, well, that's what makes him special.
Yeah, there's a definitive skill set there.
The problem is the throwing doesn't make him special. Can we
Correct.
just admit that every time I see somebody, and I saw a bunch of it yesterday, people saying, yeah, but that's why you got to get him going in the running game. If this guy can't throw the ball to win, the Eagles aren't winning anything. They're not going to win anything. There's already been adjustments made in the league. They're not allowing him to escape in the middle. They're making him go outside. Everything they're doing to Jalen Hurts is forcing him. They're trying to force him to the left, but they're okay forcing him to the right. They are. They don't want him to escape the pocket up the gut. Boom. That's where he got a lot of yardage in his career. So people are starting to question it. I had a bunch of people, pro Jalen people, that are now saying, you know what? Where's my buddy Len? My buddy Len is the most positive Eagles fan. I used to make him so mad when I would be negative on doing talk radio. And he'd be like, are you doing this because you need to play the other side of things? And I'm like, all right, maybe some of it is that, but still. So, he said, Hurts is very limited as a quarterback, and it's really starting to show.
I think limited's the right word to use.
He's limited as a passer. He's limited in what he's doing right now. And back to Dan Orlovsky, I mean, all I said all offseason was that now you have a bona fide play caller, and this is going to make everybody so much better. You have Saquon Barkley. This is going to make Jalen Hurts so much better. Saquon Barkley has exceeded expectations so far. Would you agree with that, Tyler?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And we're still sitting here saying, feed the guy more.
Right. And you could do even more, but he's been sensational.
Yeah, he's been tremendous.
And
I don't think there's any question he's been their best offensive player. He maybe has been their best player, period.
Most likely he has. And we haven't seen a bump from Jalen Hurts with any of it. Do I think that you can still criticize the offense, the coaching? Well, like if I see one more apologist say, well, Kellen Moore's not running his offense. Well, hey, Kellen, let's start running your offense up there, pal. All right? Like, that's not an excuse. So everybody shares a little bit of blame on this. The defense sucks. Vic Fangio, I don't know. This guy's so overrated.
I need to go on like a 20-minute tirade about Vic Fangio and the Vic Fangio disciples because we've been doing this now for 4 years.
So annoying.
And I think that we probably need an entire show. And that's what people are going to go, well, you guys are really putting a lot of onus on Jalen Hurts. Well, we should put a lot of onus on Jalen Hurts because he's played poorly and he's the most important player on the team. But he is not the sole responsibility to why this team is an ugly 2-2. Right, they're 2-2, which is not the worst place to be. There's a lot of 2-2 teams in the NFL.
A lot of time.
But they're an ugly 2-2 right now. It's not just him. The coaching staff's been bad. The defense has been bad at times. They were great against the Saints. They were terrible they sandwiched a good game in between two bad games.
It's a matter of whether you think that they can turn it around.
It's like all phases of this team right now just look out of sync. And at times it almost feels like there's disinterest, which really, I think, annoys people.
That points to the coach. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to hear me say this a lot over the next 10 days. The Eagles come back, host the Browns, at the Giants, at the Bengals, host the Jaguars. If they don't go 3-1 in those games, I might stop watching the team. So they go 3-1, then everybody's going to talk themselves back into, we're going back to the Super Bowl. Just remember this, because you will. They go 3-1. We're going to do that. I don't think it changes what this team is.
Over the next 4 games?
Over the next 4 games.
I think it's very, very plausible they do.
Well,
I think
they better go 3-1.
They get the bye. They go play the Browns, who, Deshaun Watson stinks, too. It's a really good defense, don't get me wrong, but Deshaun Watson stinks. They got the Browns. Then I think they have the Giants in there, who they still are better
Home against the Browns, 1:00 game. Following Sunday at the Giants, 1:00 game. Following Sunday, 4:25 at the Bengals. That won't be easy.
No.
And then home.
It's the Panthers, right?
And that's Sunday Night Football against the Jags.
Oh, it's the Jags. Okay.
And Doug Peterson may not be the coach at the time. If you can't beat that Punch and Judy quarterback in that team, I don't know what to tell you. If they don't go 3-1 over the next 4 games, I'll be out. I'll be done. Because, honestly, not even hold a gun to my head. What am I betting? I'm not betting the Eagles to win the NFC this year. No, thank you. I do not see that coming up.
No, I mean, if I were a betting man right now, my odds on favorite, and I'm sure they probably are on the books as well, it's the Detroit Lions.
Dude, you watch the Lions game on Monday Night Football, and you're like, they're good.
They're a really good football team.
They have real talent. It's good they have a good offense. I don't feel like that when I watch the Eagles, man. I don't feel like they're well coached. I don't feel like just one more thing. Can we? I saw that. Now I prefer to use Pro Football Focus when it supports my argument. So I'm going to put it up there.
That seems to be the common thread with them. Right. They're a bunch of idiots when it's a bad argument. But it's the greatest stat in the world when it supports your argument.
Well, and so Jalen Hurts has not been good this year as a quarterback per Pro Football Focus, and this is one of these Eagle aggregators that put this up there. He is a top 5 worst passing quarterback through 4 games per PFF. Will Levis, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Jacoby Brissett, and Jalen Hurts. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Will Levis, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Jacoby Brissett, Jalen Hurts. So Will Levis, who will never be a starting quarterback in this league. Bo Nix, who has 4 games of experience. Jacoby Brissett, who is terrible. And Caleb Williams, who has struggled so far as the first overall pick. And then Jalen Hurts. Which name doesn't belong in that 5? It should be Jalen Hurts.
Sure. I mean, you have a guy who's, the rest of the group, it's a journeyman backup. I speak highly of Jacoby Brissett as a backup. I think
as a backup, good backup.
He's one of you talked, I think you talked the other day about the top 32 quarterbacks in the league. He's probably like 34.
I'll take him over Will Levis.
Right? Will Levis stinks. Will Levis stunk at Penn State. He lost a job. Oh my God! Don't get me started on Will Levis. I hate time. Will Levis. But Will Levis stinks. Caleb Williams is struggling to find himself in Chicago, and it's only been 4 games.
And it's fine. He's a rookie.
Same thing with Bo Nix. Bo Nix threw for 50 or 60 yards last week, and they won. At one point, I think there was a stat that said Cortland Sutton, I think it was, had 60 of the 50 receiving yards.
It's all the same thing
for the Broncos. Again, a rookie. I don't think he's very good, but a rookie nonetheless. And then you have Jalen Hurts, who, but based on those gradings, is amongst one of the, and I think the eye test probably tells you a little bit better.
Yep.
But based on those gradings, he's in a bottom 5 echelon right now.
Doesn't it feel like we've gotten into the DeLorean and went back to 2021 before the 2022 season, where everything that we wondered about Jalen Hurts and me, it was a pretty violent discussion among, can Hurts be the guy or is Hurts not the guy? Everything that we've seen since he was struggling last year and what we've seen so far this year, isn't that what we talked about? Just as a passer, as a quarterback, he's not very good. At least back then, he protected the football. That's the difference. He's among the worst. He's among the worst, one of the worst, close to being the worst in turnovers, interceptions. He is the worst in turnovers. Can't happen. So we're through 4 games, and we're back to having the conversation about, is Jalen Hurts a good enough passer? I don't know. He doesn't look like it right now.
And the unfortunate part is this is a fine conversation to have with a rookie, a second-year quarterback, a guy on his rookie deal. This conversation is much more palatable to have, right? Because you go, but prior to signing a contract, you go, if he's not the guy, he's not the guy, and it is what it is. Once you sign a contract, that's where issues arise.
Because looking in, giving a smile as his interview with Jason Avant yesterday, it really it got me going in the head, because we talked about not Sam Darnold. We talked about Andy Dalton before, and I had said it. I said, if Andy Dalton's the starting quarterback of this team, where are the Eagles? They're not any worse. They're probably better. You got to take the layups. He's struggling to be a functional quarterback right now. You're better off with a game manager right now than you are with Jalen Hurts, because game managers protect the football, and he's not doing it. All right, I want to get to the update here because we have more things to talk about. I want to bitch about Jalen Hurts the entire show. But we have headlines with Tyler Zulli. What do you got there, Tyler?
You sure you don't want to do that? We could definitely do that. We can make it happen.
If I did 4 hours of sports radio, we would talk about Jalen Hurts for 3 hours, but we have some other stuff that we want.
All right, let's get to some of the baseball games across the playoffs or yesterday. That was 4 games dominated by pitching, or 4 games, 3 of them dominated by pitching. We'll start with the early one. Tarek Skubal gets his first playoff start. He's basically a lock to win the American League Cy Young this year. He wins the Triple Crown in the American League. Well over 200 strikeouts, 18 wins, a sub 2.3 ERA. And he didn't disappoint. He ended up going 6 innings. He struck out 6. He gave up 4 base runners. And the Tigers continue to play playoff baseball. We talked about them a lot in the leading up to the postseason. They continue to play playoff baseball. They win this one 3-1 over the Houston Astros. Framber Valdez was not super efficient. The bullpen was really good. A bunch of guys did a nice job of holding the Tigers in check. But the Tigers win this one 3-1 and take a 1-0 series lead. And they're now a game away from eliminating the Houston Astros from the playoffs.
I was at softball practice last night, and I had the phone in my pocket, and I was in the 9th inning because bases were loaded in the 9th inning.
Yep.
And they'd given up a run, so I was like, don't blow this. And I was glad to see that they were able to hold on.
Yeah,
so,
and AJ Hinch turned away from his closer. Jason Foley came into the 9th with a 3-0 lead. He gave up 3 hits. He only got 1 out. He gives up the earned run. So he said, you know what, dude, you're not losing us this game. He turned to Bo Brisky, who ended up getting the final 2 outs, and the Tigers win 3-1. Second game also was about pitching. And if you watched the entirety of the first game before switching over to the second game, you probably thought, I'll catch this game in the 3rd or the 4th inning. Nope. It was flying by. This one only 10 hits in this game combined. The Kansas City Royals win this one 1-0 over the Baltimore Orioles. Cole Reagans gets the win. He goes 6 innings, gives up 8, or strikes out 8, gives up just 4 hits on the day. Corbin Burns was really, really good. He gave up 1 earned over 8 innings pitched. He kind of becomes a hard luck loser in this one. But the Royals on the road, a second straight road team, goes on the road and wins game 1 in the wild card round. This one was over in less than 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah, I didn't catch any of that, but I have family that are in the Baltimore area. Very disappointed with yesterday's game. They've won a ton of regular season games and have had 0 success in the playoffs, and that was a tough one yesterday. Not to put up a run and have such a well-pitched game.
Yeah, Burns was good.
Yeah, sure was.
So we'll move on to game 3, which was, I guess, provided enough offense for all 4 games in this one. The Mets beat the Brewers 8-4. So the Brewers get 2 runs in the first inning. The Mets come right back and get 3 in the second. The Brewers pick up a lead and make it 4-3 in the fourth. The Mets, all they do is respond for another 5 runs in the fifth, because apparently all the Mets do is come from behind and win games. They are looking scarier and scarier as the playoffs unfold. They win game 1 8-4. Luis Severino was fine. He gave up 3 earned runs across 6 innings, gave up 8 hits, but the bullpen was really good between Jose Butto and Ryan Stanek. They went 3 innings, gave up no hits, no base runners, struck out 4 in this one as the Mets roll 8-4 over the Brewers. All 3 games so far won by the road team.
Runners in scoring position, 5 for 7 by the Mets.
Yeah, that's going to help you win games.
Every time that it felt like every time they came up with runners in scoring position, boom. And that, the 5 runs in the 5th inning was really it. This is a scrappy team, man.
Sure is.
I got to stop it. I got to stop worrying about this team. It's they're going to sense weakness. The Phillies sure as hell better not be acting like a lot of fans are like me right now. I do not like It's because of the last 2 years. The Diamondbacks were that annoying team last year, scrappy, annoying team that came in and took out the National League. The Phillies were the scrappy, annoying team. Not scrappy because they had stars on there, but you know what I mean.
Sure.
And got going, and now it feels like the Mets is that team.
Well, the funny thing is, too, like the comp between the Phillies and the Mets this year and is specifically almost feels unfair to the Mets, because if you remember, the Phillies faltered in September for a while, got in kind of by the thinnest of margins, and then, of course, had that rallying cry game in St. Louis. But the Mets have been playing playoff ball. We've talked about it. The Tigers, the Padres, they've all been playing kind of like playoff-style baseball for the better part of a month now to get into the postseason. Those teams can be dangerous. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and let's also this isn't the Tampa Bay Rays. They're the highest payroll in baseball.
Yeah,
so
it's still a good team.
It's still
supposed to be a good team, right?
Yeah, they're still well financed, but just the way they started the season, we were laughing at the Mets. Oh, I loved it. Oh, look at the futility. Steve Cohen's going crazy, their owner. Oh.
It's always comical when a high payroll team doesn't perform.
God, man.
Let's move on to another high payroll team, the San Diego Padres. Yeah. They're the only home team to win a game in game 1 of the wild card round. We talked about the Braves. They were kind of hamstrung with their pitching staff having to use a bunch of guys on Monday to get through the doubleheader. No Chris Sale in this one as well, so A.J. Smith-Shawver started the game. He only ended up going an inning in a third, and then the bullpen was taxed with almost 8 full innings. Aaron Bummer, Jesse Chavez, Luke Jackson all pitched fairly well, but there was not a lot of life from the Braves' offense as Michael King struck out 12 over 7 innings. Didn't walk a single hitter, gave up just 5 hits. The Padres bullpen comes in, gives up 2 hits over 2 innings, strikes out 3, and the Padres are 1 game away from the NLDS and sending the Atlanta Braves home with a 4-0 win.
So far, what we had said and a lot of Phillies fans said, the 2 teams you don't want to face or you would like to try to avoid, the Padres and the Mets. And they both won yesterday.
Sure. And the Padres, you're not going to have to worry about until the NLCS if you were to get there. But the Mets do pose a formidable opposition for a 5-game postseason series.
And we called it yesterday with the Braves, having to fly all the way to the West Coast, not having their top starter going because he was injured. They look like it yesterday. I think that they get swept. And the Mets, they're kind of running off adrenaline. I look for the Brewers to win game 2, and then you'll have that deciding game. Because the Mets aren't good enough to where I think they're just trucking everybody. But They find ways to win games.
Yeah, so game 2's across the board today. Kind of this, actually not kind of, exactly the same setup as it was yesterday. Tigers, Astros get started at 2:30. Royals, Orioles at 4:30. Mets and the Brewers at 7:30. And the Braves and the Padres at 8:30. Now, of course, 2:32, 8:38, because you got to get those last 60 seconds of paid spot times in. But those will be about 2:30, about 4:30 will be the start times in those games.
All right, so before we have some Philly stuff right here, but let's pause for a second. Let's talk about our good friends at True Mark Financial. I'm excited because I love real estate, and I'd like to maybe get back in the market, get an investment property or whatever. Interest rates are coming down. The housing market has changed significantly. I've already seen in my neighborhood a bunch of houses go up for sale where a while there wasn't a whole lot out there. TrueMark Financial's mortgage specialist can help offer you guidance on loan options and terms. So if you've been thinking about this, maybe you're a first-time home buyer or you want to get back in the market, you want to upgrade to a bigger house. We've all been there. TrueMark Financial can help you, right? They'll assess your finances, look at your credit score, and say, hey, here's what you can afford. And then you start looking around. They can help you save for a down payment and budget for your closing costs. So check them out. TrueMark.com/PHLYITY. TrueMark.com/PHLYITY. TrueMark Financial. Check them out. All right. I need the gear. I didn't get any of the gear. Our team's starting on Saturday. I don't have any of the FOCO gear. I need it. I'm glad I wasn't wearing it this morning. Could have been puked on, but FOCO is a leading manufacturer of sports and entertainment merchandise with a product line that includes apparel, accessories, toys, collectibles, novelty items, and more. When I think novelty items, I don't think about Philly stuff. Best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. So you got playoff games coming up. What are you doing? FOCO always has our back for Philly sports. And right now, PHLY 10 gets you 10% off at checkout. So check them out. Show off your love with your team with a hoodie, jacket, beachwear, even overalls that Jamie Lynch probably will be wearing. There's something for fans for almost every occasion. FOCO's hooked us up. PHLY 10 for 10% off. FOCO. Check them out. All right, so what are the Phillies doing this week? Because we know, last year with the Braves, they were like, oh, my God, we can't just sleep all week. What are we going to do so we're sharp when the series starts, right? So what's going on with the Phillies this week? What are they doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. So today, actually, they're going to be playing an inter-squad scrimmage. And I guess try to keep guys fresh, which makes sense. It's the best that you can do. And like you said, don't cry wolf if you lose a series, because all you did was give Braves fans and the Braves crap. We all did it for, having the advantages and still losing the series. So you can't cry foul if the Phillies were to go on and lose the NLDS, but they're trying their best to avoid that situation. And like I said, they're having an inter-squad scrimmage today. And Dave Dombrowski talked about it. This is not something that they're going to take lightly, it seems. This is a pretty competitive group, I think, whether it be they always talk about how competitive they are at golf and their fantasy football league and things like that. Pretty competitive group overall. So Dave Dombrowski talked the other day and said, or I guess talked yesterday and said that not only are they going to play, but they seem to be taking this thing pretty seriously. So here is Dave Dombrowski, courtesy of our friends over at Crossing Broad.
We're going to play a regular inter-squad game. They were drafting teams, picking teams in there. They had captains for both teams. I'll let Topper tell you all that stuff, but they had two captains for each team, and he has them set up, and we're going to have umpires here, and we're going to have crowd noise here, and we're going to have the scoreboard working and walk-up views so we can have it feel like it's a regular game. And I don't know what their final, somehow there was going to be a wager on this game. I stayed away from knowing what the wager is going to be, but somehow there's a lot of internal type of quest on who's going to win this game.
There you go. Wagers. I'm sure Major League Baseball is really happy to hear the GM talk about gambling over the game.
By the way, wanted to give proper credit, not just Crossing Broad, but for the original video for Devin Caney from 94 WIP on that one.
Nice. As well. Gotcha. Yeah. So, which is all great. Here's what you worry about. You worry about because the organization, the players are very aware of what's happened with teams previously. So you try to do things like this to make up for it. But sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And it's impossible to actually be playing real games leading up to that. Like we've talked about with the Mets have been in the playoffs the last month. So you can have a bets and player on player and crowd noise and everything like that. But it's still like it's gonna keep you sharper than if you didn't do that. But still, Phillies are gonna have their handful. Well, coming up on Saturday and Sunday.
I don't know if you noticed the one comment, and I didn't point it out because there was a swear word in there, and didn't want to exaggerate the swear word that was in there. But the comment is true, and I think a lot of people hold the same thought. If you sold tickets to this thing, it would sell out, or maybe not sell out, but it would sell pretty well. People would for sure go. So I wondered the same thing, but then I had a thought.
Aramark workers are striking.
Correct.
And I wonder if they're like, well, we would need to have, I mean, I don't know if you need to sell stuff or whatever, but you need support for the stadium to open it up.
Sure.
And maybe that played a part in it.
It probably did. I imagine.
Maybe not.
I imagine it did to an extent in terms of like you have to bring in all of your ushers and you have to bring in all of your concessions and you have to bring in all of the people that are at the gate. And obviously maybe it did play a factor into it. Maybe it was a quick turnaround. They didn't have the capability to do so, but they've known about this for a while.
Right.
This is a major league team and a major league organization, and one by the way that's run really well for the most part. Right. You would think that they might have had an idea that this was coming. I think it would have been a good idea to sell tickets to this thing. It doesn't have to be face value regular season tickets, but
Tyler, you could have for season ticket holders, you could have offered it to them first,
right.
And then everybody else, you could have said $10. It goes to whatever charity goes to. The Phillies do great charitable work. It could go to their ALS foundation that they have. I mean, I'm disappointed. I would have loved to see what it looked like. But
sure.
Now, will they be playing? Like, will it be on NBC Sports Philadelphia?
From what I believe, it's not televised. It doesn't seem like there's any kind of broadcast of it. I mean, hey, if you and I want to go down there and see if we can sneak in, we'll do an unsanctioned.
No, the media should be able to cover it, right?
What's the thing they run in the eighth inning where it's like any copyright or reproduction without the express written consent of the Phillies?
Express written consent.
If there's no production to begin with, it can't be reproduced, right? It can't be rebroadcasted.
So the question is,
if I go down there with my phone, love my phone case, by the way. I hope you like that. If I go down there with my phone, and just start broadcasting, what are they going to do?
Could we potentially go down with our YouTube presence on PHLY?
It's a great question.
And just put the phone up and here's the pitch. Long drive. I would assume they'd be mad if we did that.
Probably. I would think that they probably would.
They may have a problem. Who knows?
But we talked about this on the Union show the one time when the Union were in preseason and they weren't broadcasting. I said, what would they do if I just went there and just ran up and down the sideline with my phone?
What do you know about the Union?
I know a lot about the Union.
Are you a Union insider?
No, I wouldn't say an insider. I'm a Union fan.
Well, I would say I'm a Union fan too, and if you asked me to name 3 players on the team, I probably couldn't.
Well, I got a little bit more than that, less than insider.
I mean, I'm not JP. I'm not Kevin Kincaid from Crossing
JP and Renee do a tremendous job.
Yeah, I'm not Renee, who's a former athlete.
Totally different. I root for the team.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Curtin's the pride of Orland, Pennsylvania. So, yeah, I root for Jim or whatever. But, all right, well, there you go. Well, hopefully, Dave, you don't get in trouble for saying that there's going to be bets. And hopefully the Phillies are able to, God, like I'm telling you, man, get the puke bucket ready. Get me the puke bucket now. I need the Coors Light can over there.
John, if you watch playoff baseball with the puke bucket the whole time, you're going to be in bad shape by the time
I can't even get to the freaking game. I'm watching the Mets game yesterday with the puke bucket. Dude, I'm just telling you. This is a different animal. I don't know what the hell it is. Football does not do this to me. Nothing else does this to me. Just thinking about it right now. And then you have a Saturday and Sunday, 4 p.m. So that's the other Phillies news is it's a 4 p.m. start on Saturday and Sunday, which is awesome with me. I like that.
I think that's a great time. Weather's going to be nice. I think you're going to get an opportunity to get down there early. It's not going to you're not going to have to be down there all day. For us watching at home or for us doing the post-game show, we're not here till 12 o'clock at night, which is appreciated. But I love the 4 o'clock start. It's not super early where like the crowd's not fully into it yet. You get a chance.
1 o'clock's a lot like that.
Get a chance to tailgate, get a chance to do your stuff, but you get in at 3:30 and you're out by 8-ish probably. Depending on how long the game goes.
Yeah, it's a little later than you would want on a Sunday at least, but yeah, like weekends. My kids have games and stuff on Saturday and Sunday, so I'm not going to miss any of the game. I'll be able to watch it with the kids, which is awesome. All right, and did we say that Headlines with Tyler's sponsored by Glatt Hair?
Yes, it is brought to us by Glatt Hair Restoration because bald is now optional, and if you want to improve how you look and how you feel about yourself, Glatt Hair has the right treatment for you. So regain your confidence and visit GlattHairMCTR.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started.
So when I said I didn't want to bitch about Jalen Hurts the entire show, one of the things that I'm learning in doing something like this, Tyler and I come from radio where if you do 4 hours a day, I often did 5 hours a day. I also worked weekends at one point. Not at one point. I did a weekend shift for like 10 years. I was doing national radio. So on average, I was doing 25 hours of a week of talk time. So you have plenty of time to talk about things that you want to. This is an hour. So if we have a guest, like yesterday we had Les Bowen on. If we have a guest, we have other segments and features or whatever, like you're like, wow, we're running out of time. I wanted to dissect Darius Slay and what he had to say today. He was on with Micah Parsons. He commented about it, talking about going on with Micah Parsons. And we have the sound. I don't even, at this point, I don't even really want to play it because we kind of ran out of time. Here's the reality, is that Darius Slay, I think, innocently enough, went on this podcast with Micah Parsons, going into a bye week, coming off of a bad loss, obviously, by the Eagles, and the defense got totally trashed. Optically, it's a terrible look. But I think you have to take our view of things out of it now, because that's not the way things work now and going forward with a lot of modern day athletes. Darius Slay looked at it as, when Micah Parsons comes on my podcast, I go on his podcast, and we joke around and we make fun of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and whatever else, to where an Eagle fan watches this and is like, dude, you got roasted. That your defense sucks. You sucked, and you're laughing and joking around to where like I'm worried that this season's over. And Slay's having fun. I just think with a lot of athletes today that they cannot be happy with the result of a game and like totally not understand the perspective of anybody else. And that's just Darius Slay. I wish they didn't resign Darius Slay. It was a good trade by Howie Roseman. He was a good player here for a couple of years. He's on the downside a little bit. He's still probably an above average player. He also sets the tone for this defense, and he wears a C on his jersey. And he talked about that in the sound, that he wears a C. I think Darius Slay wants to win. I've had problems with his leadership before, both on how he's acted on the field towards his teammates and what he said after games, failure to take responsibility after the Super Bowl. That wasn't on me. I'm playing well. I don't know about everybody else, right? Like, I'm just ready to move on from Darius Slay. I don't want anything else to do with Darius Slay. So after this season, I don't know if they can move on or if he'll be back or whatever. But when he is your captain and he has helped setting the tone for the defense, I think that's a problem. And a lot of what he said, like, I don't have a problem with really what he said with Micah Parsons. It's just optically, it's a terrible look. That nothing that Darius Slay said in either instance was really anything that was wrong. It's just we don't want to hear it. And I don't need to see one of my best players the day after getting crushed, laughing and joking around. I don't want to see it. And that's the reality.
I get it. I think everything that Darius Slay said on that pod I think he's right. Like, and you break it down, right? The first thing he talked about was how he leads as a leader. Every company, every group needs, I think, a couple of different leaders. You need like your stalwart leader. You need your lead by example guy or person, I should say person. In the NFL, the lead by example guy, but you need your person.
For example, Bryce Harper's not a vocal leader.
No, he's a lead by example type of guy.
Schwarber. So if you have Schwarber, that's okay.
Sure.
If Harper's your only guy, that's a problem.
So I think with Slay, he is your jovial, keep things light, keep you uplifted type of leader. You need that kind of leader too. You need somebody that when you walk into work every day, no matter what job you do, when you walk into work every day, you enjoy their presence. And I always think about, like for us here specifically, one of the people that I think is the best at being awesome at their job, but also keeping things in a positive light is Zach Berman. He is like when I talk to Zach in the morning,
Mr. Positive,
you would think that Zach loves his job and he loves coming to work every day, and it exudes positivity when you walk in the door and he's sitting there and he, you go, hey, Zach, how's it going? He tells you he's having a great day and excited to get to work. Everybody needs that type of leader. And I think Zach is the best at it at this company. So I think that what he said there is true. Part two of what he said there is true, that he is a person and he's allowed to have interest outside of work. We have interest outside of work. I don't go home and just immediately deep dive into podcast mode. I take time off. I spend time with my wife. I spend time with my dog. I have friends. You do the same thing. You have you have relationships and people and outside things that you want to do. Everybody does, right? Whether it's a significant other or a friend group or your parents, whatever it is, like you're a person first. Everything he said individually in that group and collectively, I think, are spot on. I think what people are frustrated about is the timing of him being on Micah Parsons' podcast and kind of feeling like not only are you kind of making light of a bad game, but to an extent, I think people are also sitting here saying you threw C.J. Gardner-Johnson under the bus.
Yeah, well, and he's another one. CJGJ. That's what you sign when you re-sign him. You're signing up for that type of emotion, and he's constantly going to be talking. I'm just like I've so had enough of Slay across the board. I'm ready to turn the page and thank him for his service here in Philadelphia. CJGJ is another one that's just like, except he's not tackling anybody this year. Other than that one great play where he stuck his helmet in there and stopped them on 3rd down or 4th down. But anyway, yeah. So that's that with Darius Slay.
So 98% of everything that was done in that circumstance, I don't think he's in the wrong for. I think it's just the timing thing is upsetting fans.
I don't think any fan cares what he has to say. Honestly, I like what you said. I agree with you 100%. I listened to it and I'm like, well, he didn't say anything wrong. Whatever. I just don't care what he says. I care what he does on the field.
So if
he ain't doing enough on the field right now.
If that's the case, if you don't care what he says, then isn't it probably fair to turn and say that this shouldn't bother you then?
Honestly, it doesn't. I just think
that's fair.
I just think it's a bad optic. That's why I can say really, I'm not coming on here today and roasting them.
Sure.
I could very easily have a knuckle dragging take where I could be like, Darius Slay, you suck. How dare you go on that podcast with a Cowboy? That's your chief rival. You can never talk to a Cowboy. Who do you think you are? Buddy Ryan, Jimmy Johnson, Harold Carmichael. And you didn't even hear me mention that one time.
Sure.
Because I don't care. Because this is what these guys do. They don't care. They're laughing it up, yucking it up. I don't care. I don't. Go on with the Cowboy. Don't go on with the Cowboy. The problem is you're not a great football player anymore. And let me also say this about the captain thing with Darius Slay. I know for a fact that on a few occasions, he had to be talked to by the veteran leaders of this team. Here's the problem now. Oh, I just ripped the microphone off.
Did you just break the mic?
No, it was broken. We've already been on this. Here's the problem now. Fletcher Cox is gone. Brandon Graham's maybe he's not in the final year of his career. He actually still plays well. But you don't have the veteran leadership that you once did. You don't have the checks and balances. So who's going to Slay and having a conversation? Who's going to Jalen Carter and saying, yo, dude, you got to step it up. You can't act like that. You got to be better in practice. Who's going to Jordan Davis and saying that? The answer is nobody. That's the bigger problem here. All right, a couple more things. We have to hold PHLY accountable sometimes. And listen, we're a big, happy family here. But sometimes, just like I was talking about with Fletcher Cox, sometimes as leaders at the network, and this has always been something that I've done at all my stops, I'm gonna hold people accountable, and I'm going to hold ourselves accountable. Yesterday, I saw a tweet and an Instagram, and I don't know who was responsible for it, but it came up on the PHLY Eagles pages. On the PHLY Eagles pages. And it was after the news came down that Davante Adams has requested a trade, and the Raiders were looking for a second-round draft pick plus for him. And by the way, just a shout-out to our diehards out there. Thank you, diehards. We love you. But PHLY puts up the tweet of more or less saying, and I'm blind, so I can't see exactly what it says, but it says, should the Eagles try to make a move for Davante Adams? And again, I come from sports talk radio where 99% of the things that we talk about are barroom conversations and aren't likely to happen. And you always hear, it's not going to happen or whatever. But yeah, it could happen and it should happen, right? So that's always the conversation. We're not always going to talk about something that's likely to happen, but we'll talk about things that it's like, that's really interesting. Like, for example, I at one point, we were talking about Davante Smith for Patrick Surtain. Would it make sense to trade Patrick Surtain for Davante Smith? Wasn't going to happen, but I thought it was a really intriguing conversation. Or was it A.J. Brown? Well, actually, it was A.J. Brown because A.J. Brown got mad about it and said, WIP's trying to trade me. No, it was just a barroom conversation. There should be no barroom conversation for the Eagles trading for Davante Adams right now. So that's why we have to hold PHLY Eagles accountable. Because you have A.J. Brown, you have Davante Smith. You're not going to give up a second-round draft pick plus and then pay another wide receiver $25+ million, even if they're out for a couple of weeks. So let the knuckle draggers in the comments put that up in the comments. I just got to ask who put that up there, Tyler Zulli. I looked on the Bet Parks app. I didn't see any odds for it, but not a great tweet.
So I'm curious with Davante Adams, and I think they were talking about that. They were talking about it on ESPN last night as well. It feels to me that if there was going to be one more power move in the Aaron Rodgers saga, it would be the Jets in this particular instance. He's running out of time. He knows he's not nearly the quarterback he once was. Got a great weapon in Garrett Wilson. Doesn't seem to want to use him.
And the Jets are all in because they know that this is it. Pretty much this year, next year. Yeah, it makes sense. It does.
So I think that the Jets would make sense. I'm curious, too. I wonder, there's one team in particular. Somebody brought up, I think it was Ed Wright, said Adams going to the NFC East. One of the teams that I've talked about a lot for getting a receiver to help out your young quarterback who's playing really, really well. Would Washington be a team that might be surprising in this mix?
Not at all.
To go get a playmaker?
It's a great point. Could you imagine the Washington with Davante Adams? It's really what they're missing. McLaurin's good, but he's probably better with somebody that's a little bit better than him. Kind of like Davante. I'll take Davante over McLaurin, but I think it's the same kind of thing with A.J. Brown. There's somebody out there that's a regular viewer that goes crazy when we say Davante's 1B. Well, A.J. Brown's 1A and Davante is 1B, and that's not an insult. And McLaurin would be a better wide receiver with a better cast around him. He just would. Washington's dangerous. Washington's going to win this division. The Eagles don't wake up, and the Cowboys don't wake up. Washington's going to win this division.
Jaden Daniels is real.
He's legit. So, anyway. All right. Well, I got to get out of here because I got to take my daughter to the doctor because she's throwing up. But everybody subscribe and like and comment on PHLY. And we're here every day at 8 o'clock, so you can watch on Roku TV. You can watch at your convenience on YouTube, either live at 8 o'clock or it's available for you to watch whenever. And also podcast. The audio version is posted every morning by Tyler right around 9 o'clock, so you can listen to the show at your convenience. Everybody have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow live at 8 a.m. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.